So this segment comes from, like Andrew was saying earlier, patreon.com/what'sgoodgames, where our patrons can submit and vote on topics they want us to talk about every month. And this month, Marcus Brown got the winner. And the topic is, have there ever been any games that you've played that made you question how you play games in general?
This is a question that can be taken in a multitude of ways.
Yes.
I think the first thing for me that came to mind was mostly how my gaming habits have changed as I have gotten older, and how playing games then versus now is much different. So for instance, when I hopped back into Guild Wars 2 recently, or honestly any of the MMOs I tried like to go back to, it just made me realize, not necessarily question, but it made me realize how different my playstyle is now. And even if a really great MMO came out tomorrow, I just don't think I had the same time or dedication that I once did to video games in general in order to really invest in that and in that style when it was something that I did a lot of before. Obviously, I have a lot of hours to prove it.
Yeah, because you were big into your MMOs, and I applaud you for hopping back in recently to at least try them again.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to give them a try, but it did make me question like how I used to be when I was younger a little bit. It's just like, wow, this is all really different. And even honestly, Ori has been an interesting thing because my life was so different when the Blind Forest came out, and my living situation was different and everything was different. And so it's kind of interesting to play that game now in a completely new setting, place in my life, like time in my life. It's just it's kind of interesting.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm with you in the sense that I think it's changed as I've gotten older, but I was, just in the last segment talking about playing Call of Duty Warzone's Plunder mode, and I had a moment when I was playing on stream the other day with Endorphins and Lucigen, when I saw a strat from another team, a strategy that they were using in this Battle Royale mode, right? And I was like, I never contemplated that. And I had this existential moment where I was like, have I been playing first-person shooters wrong my entire life?
Oh,
no.
And it reminds you just how different it is coming in as a casual player, going, I'm just here to like shoot a gun and have some fun, and if I get some money, we play, it's cool. If we don't, whatever. But I was like, no, actually, like there's a lot of like pretty easy strategies you can implement to actually use the tools that the developers have built into the game for your success, but you have to actually try to use them.
Yes, you do.
And I just like had this moment where I was like, there's so many of these perks and abilities and things like that I never fully researched or looked at. And I think one of the things that really kind of stuck with me was looking at the perks of the guns and going, I never really knew what handling meant as a stat on weapons. Because if you play shooters, all guns have a variety of stats, and they have like handling, reload, stability, et cetera, et cetera. But most of the time, if you're a casual player, you don't really dig into the stats and what the finite differences of. It's not like, frame rate counting with the FGC, right? It's like that intense, but it still like makes a difference knowing what all those different stats are. And I was like, I really never stopped to think about how those stats are going to affect my gameplay and in the way that I engage with other people in a combat heavy game. And I think, it really led me to think of Destiny as being the only shooter that I've ever played where I felt like I was very comfortable with knowing what all of those stats meant, and being able to know what a bullet spray pattern is going to look like from a gun because of the stats that it had. And that's because of the sheer amount of hours that I put into that game. But it was a kind of this realization for me as a gamer to be like, have I just been overlooking this incredible game design in all of these games I've been playing my whole life? Am I really the fake gamer girl everyone says that I am?
No.
Fake gamer girl. Don't out us, Andrea. Come on.
Oh
my
God.
That's actually interesting, Andrea, because that does make me think of League. And again, disclosure, I work for Riot, but even when I first started playing, I obviously did not. And me being like baby noob League player had zero idea about a lot of things that are just really core functions of the game.
Yeah.
Like wards, like the Rift Herald, like these are things that if you are just starting in League, you shouldn't focus on them immediately. You should focus on like just getting the mechanics of a champion down and learning how to do that. But it's funny you should say it, because yes, I was like, when I started watching LCS and pro play is when I started to learn about shit I should have known. And I just kind of was like, oh no. I'm so bad at this. Holy shit. Like, I knew I was bad, but I didn't have a benchmark for how bad I was until I started watching them. And I was like, oh.
Well, I mean,
shit.
don't beat yourself up too much. You can't compare yourself to teams that are playing in the LCS. I mean, that's the highest level
just,
play.
Like, general knowledge.
They make it look so easy. Like, of
Yes.
course I think of those things. I guess for me, the first game that comes to mind is Super Mario RPG, which I played when I was 7, and that was my very first turn-based RPG game I'd ever played. And I remember never quite understanding it. I didn't know what the fuck it meant to grind for experience points and level up and increase your strength and HP and any of that. And so I'll never forget, I could not get past the first boss. And I called my aunt, because my grandma and my aunt play games, and they helped guide me as a wee lass. And she explained to me the concept of grinding for XP and getting stronger and taking on the boss. And ever since then, I've been hooked on RPGs. I've said before, that's my bread and butter. I love turn-based RPGs and JRPGs. They just usually are very big time sinks, and it's very hard to spend time doing that, says the girl who's been playing Yakuza for 3 games straight now. Whoops. Whoops. I think between all those games, I probably put in like 110 hours since I've been home from PAX because I've been sick and sitting on my ass. Anyway, priorities. So I would just say, first of all, Super Mario RPG, because that's when I discovered RPGs and how I just love that formula so much. And then the other major game that I'd say would have to be Dragon Age Origins, because that was the first game I'd ever played where your choices have major consequences. I remember Twitter had just came out, and I think that game came out in what, like 2010, 2011, 2009, right around there.
Origins 2009, I think, is right.
Okay. And someone had tweeted that they had said something to a character in their party, and it turned out it was, I don't know who it was actually, and that party member just left. They left the party. And I was like, what? Like, how can that happen? How can you piss someone off in your game so much that they leave your party and they're forever gone? And I didn't understand, how choice and consequence could be such a big thing. Now, obviously with BioWare, that's kind of like what they do. But I think knowing that your choices have consequences and the way they made all those characters feel so alive, for back in those days, the fact that you could complete a quest, then go back to camp and talk to them and they'd have something new to say. It felt like they were some of the first party members that actually were like real people. They had different opinions and they had different viewpoints on a lot of different things. And sometimes you could flirt with them. Hello, Alistair. And I would say ever since that game, whenever I play an RPG or play a game with multiple characters, I'm always looking to go back to them and talk to them and see if they have anything new to say about the story, depending on what's happened. And if they have nothing important to say, it's a real big pet peeve of mine now. So like if, we defeat a huge boss and I'm like, yeah, guys, tell me how good I did. Tell me about what you think about that. And they have nothing to say and they're just repeating the same thing they said from like 3 hours ago. It's a major like of mine. And that's because I played Origins and it left a lasting impression.
Why don't you have anything to say?
Why don't you have anything to say to me? Do you know what I just did? I just did a really cool thing, and all you can do is tell me about the weather. I don't know.
Yeah.
But does that question how you play games in general?
I would say so. Well, I mean, again, you can interpret this in a lot of ways, right? Now, how I play games, if I have multiple characters in my game, I'm always trying to interact with them to see if they have something new to say about it. So
okay,
it's not like a huge thing, but it's very like on paper, not a big deal. But in my mind, it's a very important mechanic to me.
Oh no, it's for me as well.
Yeah.
And when you were talking about what I your first RPG, I actually went and thought about it too, and I was like, wait a minute. I obviously love RPGs now, but thinking about when I played as a kid, I didn't play any RPGs. I played platformers, I played adventure games, I played strategy games. And I played pets because I'm a baller.
Oh, dude, pets. Yeah, I played pets too. Yeah, breeding those things. Oh, so
but
good.
I think my first actual RPG was Mass Effect.
Oh,
Wow. And I still have the distinct memory of, and I don't know why, I think I was like, RPG, yeah, I like that. But I don't, actually thinking back, I'm like, I don't know that I had a basis for that at all. I think I just liked space. I
I
think
mean, that
was,
works. And look what happened.
yeah, and so that was definitely a game where it made me question and then love all RPGs because I never had played that way before. But it was everything I had ever really wanted and didn't know that I had wanted.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's good and it's bad because I feel like since Origins left such a big impact on me, I keep kind of expecting to get that same amount of feedback and that same feeling from characters in games where they're gonna, act and talk and react to the world around them. And if they don't, yeah, it's just a thing. It's a thing with me. It's error. I just get mad.
I guess the good news for you though, Britt, is that how RPGs have evolved since Origins is quite dramatic in that they're so more robust now because the technology allows developers to build more into games than they ever could have previously without like a gargantuan budget. And so I think it's interesting kind of looking at the evolution of like kind of where that stemmed from for you to like where it is now, because at least now I think most developers are conscious of that and try to make sure that they do narrative development around those characters, knowing that people are going to look out for those things. Whereas before it was forgivable. Right? There's so many things, and maybe that's even like a whole other topic, like things that we forgave in games like even a decade ago that we don't forgive in games now.
Right? Because your perspective has changed. Even playing Yakuza, when I'm talking to someone, if they have nothing to say, I'm like, you bastard. It kind of tears down that wall for me. I know. It's not good.
No, it does. It breaks immersion a little bit, right? Especially, I mean, mostly after a major plot point or something has happened where you feel like they would naturally say something if they were a real human being. That's when you're like, oh, right, this is just a video game. And that kind of sucks to have those moments because you do, especially in times like these, want to lose yourself a little bit more in them and feel at home in some way. Just like, I'll just pretend to be over there for a while. It's cool.
Be my virtual friend.
Yes. Why are my virtual friends so shitty?
Why don't you talk to me? Why don't you engage in conversation?
Why don't you listen about my problem?
I know. Because that's what my dog's for and my husband.
I mean, I wasn't going to touch that one. I was just going to let it go.
It's okay.
It was
Don't ever let anything go.
No, it was interesting. Just as like one other thing that I noticed about some of my gameplay is, kind of thinking back to games that you used to think that you were really confident in or really good at, and then now you try similar games and you're like, wait, I used to be like really good at that. Like I was thinking about how at PAX East, I went by the Three Fields Entertainment booth and played Dangerous Driving 2, which I, talked about on our panel, the team from Criterion that made Dangerous Driving, kind of the Burnout-esque game, arcade racer. And I used to play so many arcade racing games that I was really, really good. And I'm still pretty good with some practice, but like nothing like I used to be. But I think it reminds you that like there's a time and a place for certain types of games in your life. And so when you think about this question that Marcus had about have there ever been any games that you've played that have made you question how you play games in general, I think sometimes I question the types of games I play in general more so than specific mechanics in games. Like my skill in a game is different to me than the kind of game that interests me and keeps me engaged. Because let's be honest, I'm like shit in a lot of games that are really interesting to me because I want to play regardless of if I'm good at them or not. But it's way more fun when you're good at it.
Yes.
Yeah. I've never played the Souls games, but I would say it's questioned the way I play games in general in the sense that I just say fucking, if anything's like a Souls type, I'm like, nope, no, not for me. I don't want to get angry today. So I guess
the Souls games are an interesting toe dipping for me because I did try all of them for like a couple of hours and just it didn't make me question me as much as everybody else and just wondering, or I guess it is a little bit me of just wondering like why I'm so wired clearly so differently than all these other people because they see this as a really big challenge that then when they overcome it they feel very accomplished, whereas I just don't enjoy feeling like I'm beating my head against a wall. Even if at the end of the day I get through it, to me, the time required to get there is more of a time lost for me than it is any sort of time gained.
Exactly.
And I get their mindset of like, I'm learning or I'm doing this, but just personally, I'm not motivated that way. And I feel like I would rather read a book, or I would rather go outside, or I would rather talk, like I would rather do other things with my time than that. And if I'm going to learn something, maybe I should download Duolingo instead and just
There you
fucking
go.
do that. Like
me.
so to me, it just made me those games definitely gave me a bit of an existential crisis of like, am I the crazy one? Like, it seems like so many people really like this shit and I don't like it at all. And I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, that and roguelikes for me. I've learned that I do not enjoy a roguelike. I just detest the feeling of losing all that progress and having to start from scratch because I feel like that's time lost. You know, like you're saying, though, some people love that feeling. To them, it's an accomplishment. To them, it's a challenge they can't wait to overcome. And to me, I feel like I accomplished nothing.
I think it's like the skill-based part of it, right?
Hmm?
There's that, and I think when you're young, you don't mind the time wasted as much, not shouldn't say time wasted, but like
I mean, it is wasted.
I really do. There it is. But there's lots of ways to waste your time.
Truth.
So there's that whole concept of like time feels very long when you're young and very short as you get older. I feel that a lot right now. I feel like back in the day, I didn't mind running through levels or like doing things that were really difficult, spending all of my time in a game. I didn't mind. I felt like I had all the time in the world. Now I don't, right? I feel much more like there are other things to manage with my time. And that is when I lose patience with a game like that. And that is when I do tend to now, I'm giving myself permission to play things on baby ass baby mode, because if I want to experience it, but I just don't have that time and / mental fortitude to want to play it in that way, I shouldn't be punishing myself for that when I'm just at a different stage in my life.
Yeah.
Amen.
Ooh, that was a good conversation, ladies.
Yeah.
I'm into it.
It was. Thanks, Marcus, for writing in. If you guys want to submit ideas for us to chat about in our Patreon produced segment, if you're like, you know what, I would really love to hear what the girls have to say about this topic, we request you guys' topics once a month for our Patreon produced segment at patreon.com/whatsgoodgames. It helps support everything we do here at WGG. We would love to hear from you. So thanks again, Marcus. And this was really fun. It was a really nice little chat.
It was.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think we all should go play some video games or maybe take a nap or do some laundry or go clean up whatever mess your child has made, because they're there when you're working from home just pestering you every day. But hopefully you are able to take a moment, take a deep breath and go, you know, everything's going to be okay. The world is a little wild right now, but we still have video games, and it's something that we can all share and love together. And just a friendly reminder, if the stress of the world is really weighing down on you, because it's weighing down on all of us. Weighed down on me a lot last week, which a lot of you picked up on. Don't forget about Take This. I've been saying this to everybody. TakeThis.org is a great place to go when you're like, my anxiety is high, I feel panicked, I feel scared, I feel angry, and video games are helping, but they're just not enough. Our friends at TakeThis.org are always there, because don't forget, it's okay to not be okay. And that's what I'm going to leave you with. Hopefully you'll have a better day tomorrow. And tonight, go play some games, drink some drinks, eat some chocolate.
Eat some food. Oh,
Yeah.
that too.
Goodbye, everybody.